Oh, we are live. We are live on the Dynasty Roundtable. Matt Babich and the NFL Combine has happened. It is over with. The underwear Olympics, all the big strong men running, and man, those poor bag holders, man. When I was watching it, these poor bag holders just got
Get destroyed.
Byron Murphy or somebody just popped one of them. I can't remember who in the defensive line drills. I was like, oh my gosh, there's no liability. There's no they need some good insurance or something.
Yeah, I was just about to say, what's their insurance plan? Are these guys
Yeah.
unionized? Are they protected? Are their rights protected?
I don't know. I think they just get a ham sandwich and they get to be on the field with the
That's
prospects.
probably what it is. And you know what? If they sent me a letter that says we will give you one ham sandwich and you can be on the field helping out with the combine, I'm saying I'll buy my own ham sandwich. I'll be there. You don't even have to give me a ham sandwich. I mean, that's an honor.
Right. Absolutely. Maybe one of these days we will finagle our way into the combine. I mean, we're growing, right? We deserve to be there. Maybe next year.
I think we should do our own combine and find out who the most athletic person in Player Profiler is.
Maybe we could, do that at the draft. Yeah.
What's the Podfather speed score? These are the questions that the people want answers to.
Well, maybe we can find that out at the draft house. We could do a little combine. I don't know. We'll see. But what are we doing tonight? What's on tap for tonight?
Well, I mean, the combine was incredibly eventful. There were a lot of opinions that changed based on how these players tested. We'll talk about how much we should be changing our opinion on some of these guys. Guys like JJ McCarthy are getting debated. We have Xavier Legette, Audric Estime now with his slow 40 time. There's a lot of prospects that are shifting up and down rankings. Combine's the biggest event pre-draft. And so this is going to be one of our biggest pre-draft shows because there's so much to break down. And I guess we're going to look at your top 25 rookie rankings, which you already have tweaked since putting it out on Twitter.
Yeah, I cheated a little bit. I'm not going to lie, but I feel like it was the right adjustment to make. So we'll talk about my rookie rankings, the top 25. We'll answer some of your questions in the chat. Maybe we'll give you a sleeper or two at the end. And all of that starts right now. All righty then. So now I have to do this thing called using technology, and you all know how great I am at that. For somebody who's 30 some years old, I should be better. So we have this sheet, very technical, I know. And so what we're going to do is reveal these. Maybe we'll go top 5, then top 10, or we'll figure it out. But we'll start with the top 5, and we will work our way down, and I'll have Matt Babich react to them, and we'll talk about them as we go. So without further ado, are we ready for the top 5 here?
Yeah, let me guess. Marvin Harrison Jr. at 1. We're going to play that game.
Well, this is Superflex. So
people are talking about it still. Superflex, Marvin Harrison Jr. 101. It is happening. It has happened in Mock Draft Live. But I see that you took the sensical route and you put Caleb Williams at number 1. And I like what you did with 2 and 3. So the further we go along in the draft process, the more I want to put both Marvin Harrison Jr. and Malik Neighbors in between that first and second tier of quarterback. And we could spend time talking about how awesome both of those two receivers are. If you tuned in last week with John Laub, which was an incredible show, I highly recommend going back and watching that. But we talked about how Marvin Harrison Jr. and Malik Neighbors can be like a JJ and CeeDee Lamb in their draft class, like two guys who just rise up to the top of dynasty ranks. We know they're elite talents. Let's talk about Jaden Daniels over Drake May, because I think that's something that I haven't seen a lot of so far. It seems like Drake May is the consensus QB2. He's my QB2. So before I give my reaction into Jaden Daniels, I want to hear about your process and what went into that decision.
Well, I don't know. I've watched a lot of Drake May, and some people just go nuts for him. Like, some people are just the biggest Drake May fans, and I get it. He's big, he's strong, he's athletic. But some people are going to the point where they're comparing him to Josh Allen. And as somebody who watched Josh Allen live in person play a Big Ten team like my beloved Iowa Hawkeyes, that Josh Allen, I'm telling you, in college was a man amongst boys. I watched him shred off like 4 or 5 Hawkeye defenders as he rolled to his left, came back to his right, and then threw the ball like 50 yards down the field. Like that dude was different. And like on tape, it shows up, and I just don't see it with Drake May. I think he's going to be fine. I think, and people kind of lose their minds when I say this, but my comp for him is Daniel Jones, and I don't mean that as an insult. I mean that as I think Daniel Jones can be a really good quarterback, a serviceable quarterback in the NFL, a starter level quarterback, and I think that's what Drake May is. So again, I mean no disrespect by this ranking. I'm probably going to have a little bit of Drake May, just probably not as much as everybody else, and probably not as much as you. So that's kind of where I'm at.
So you made the comparison to Josh Allen. So you're not at all concerned about the fact that, you know, he had injury history and he didn't have really a truly productive season like we know now until the age of 22 in his 6th season in college. So how much are you factoring the fact that he has the age factor and a lack of youthful production?
Who, Josh Allen?
No, Jaden Daniels.
Oh, Jaden, you're right. Yeah, Jaden Daniels. I just really
Josh Allen had a productive season at 20, which is why I noted the comparison.
Yeah, Jaden Daniels to me, just on the tape, has a really good arm, like down the field, and does some things with his legs that to me remind me of Justin Fields. And to me, like this is really close. Like this evaluation is very close, but the things that worried me about Justin Fields, I kind of worry the same about Jaden Daniels, to be honest with you. Like he holds the ball a long time and oftentimes relies on his athleticism to get him out of trouble. And you're right, he did not put up a productive season until his 5th year or 6th year in college, and that's concerning. And you wonder why did that happen? And he transferred away from Arizona State to LSU, and he has Malik Neighbors and Brian Thomas Jr. So there's some legitimate concerns there. It's just it's very, very close to me. Neither of these guys are even close in my evaluation to Caleb Williams. I'll just say that right now.
Yeah, exactly. That's the main point, right? That these are two very different tiers of quarterback.
Yeah, if I'm not gonna fight you. Like if let's just say, and I know I've said this before, and maybe it's a cop out answer. I don't know. But let's just say we were in a rookie draft together and we co-owned a team, and you were like, and we had the 4th pick, and Jaden Daniels and Drake May are staring us in the face, and you want Drake May and I want Jaden Daniels. I'm not going to fight you on top of a hilltop. Like, okay, we can take Drake May, but you know, the next time we have a 50-50 decision, you know, maybe I get to pick Xavier Worthy, you know, or Adonai Mitchell over Brian Thomas or something. I'm alluding to later rankings that we're going to talk about. So anyway, it's very close between these two. I just give Jaden Daniels the edge because we're looking at it too from a fantasy football perspective, and what he can do with his legs puts him over the top. So again, a landing spot, like, and we haven't talked enough about this either. Like landing spot is going to matter for these guys. Like whichever quarterback goes to the better landing spot. I mean, like which one of these quarterbacks is going to get drafted by the Patriots? That could move them down the rankings, as opposed to what happens if the Falcons draft one of these quarterbacks. To me, I think that's going to matter. I mean, what do you think about that?
Yeah, we like to say talent over situation, but the fact of the matter is the situation plays so much into it. Bryce Young is not a bottom 3rd quarterback talent in the NFL, but because he's in the distraught Carolina Panthers organization, he looked like one last year. So if either of these two quarterbacks, Jaden Daniels or Drake May, goes to a bad situation, you can't put one over the other. So in my mind, it's essentially who has the better landing spot. If either of those two go to Atlanta, they're probably the QB2, especially Jaden Daniels with what he can do on the ground as well. Having that arsenal of weapons to step into, I think is a great fit for Jaden Daniels. Drake May is, like you said, more of a pure pocket passer. And he's not going to be a guy who's going to be scrambling a ton, but he also had 700 rushing yards in 2022. He had a 98th percentile speed score at 6'4", 220, putting up a 4,000-yard passing season at age 20 at UNC with nearly 38 touchdowns. And while he had a talented supporting cast, Josh Downs was a second-round pick. Devontae Walker might be a second-round pick. So he's not getting a Malik Neighbors in his arsenal. He did this without a true locked-in wide receiver one on his team. And sometimes I don't think he gets enough credit for that. There are a lot of faults to May's game that are going to have to get fixed at the next level. But for now, Drake May is above Jaden Daniels for me. I think he's special. He's interviewing very well. Everyone who's talking to him loves the way he approaches the game. And, I think he's going to score highly on Cody's dog factor. That's something we gotta consider. But overall, I think the important thing is that you have QB 2 and 3 behind Marvin Harrison Jr. and Malik Neighbors. That's the real test right now in Superflex leagues.
Yeah, and it comes down to it's a safer pick for me. I believe more in the prospect of Marvin Harrison Jr. and Malik Neighbors at the wide receiver position more than I do the quarterbacks right now. And I know some people love these quarterbacks. Like there's some, like I said, some people are gung ho on Drake May. Some people are gung ho on JJ McCarthy. And that's fine. And I'm sure we're going to get to your JJ McCarthy blasphemy a little bit later on. When we talk about the next few picks here or the few players that are ranked. But to me, like it just makes more sense for your dynasty team to invest, to make the safe investment in a Marvin Harrison Jr. and a Malik Neighbors, because to me, both those guys, I have Marvin Harrison 1, but both of those guys are about as can't miss of a prospect as I've seen in a long, long time. And yeah, go ahead.
And look back to 2020. Would you rather, in a super flex league where we try and pump up QBs all the time, would you have rather picked Tua Tagovailoa or Justin Jefferson in the first round?
Precisely. Yeah, that's exactly what we're talking about here. It's just because it's a super flex league. And I know every league's has different scoring settings, maybe who knows? Like every league's different as far as how they value players too. But a lot of times these quarterbacks get pushed up just because they're quarterbacks. And we saw it with Bryce Young last year. We also saw it with CJ Stroud, and that worked out. But it's just like, you're right. Like there's the Tuas of the world, and we want to do our best to try to avoid those. And Marvin Harrison Jr. and Malik Neighbors, for me, I not only do I have them ranked above, but I have them very confidently ranked above those two quarterbacks.
Yeah, I think we've done a great job of covering that. The chat is really active right now, so shout out to everyone in the chat. Are we ready to go 6 through 10? Because I know the player I love talking about is on here. There he is.
There we go. We have Roma Dunze, Brock Bowers, JJ McCarthy makes it all the way up to number 8, Adonai Mitchell at 10, and Brian Thomas at Adonai Mitchell at 9, Brian Thomas at 10. And this was the change that I made, right? Because I throughout the whole process, man, Adonai Mitchell. I loved Adonai Mitchell, and he wowed me at the combine. I did not expect that 40 time. I don't know about you, but and then listening to Alex Dunlap today on Mind of Mansion, which if you haven't checked that out, it's a great listen to after this program's over with. Don't leave now. Like listen, keep listening, keep tuning in. But Mind of Mansion today was unbelievable. And listening to him talk about Adonai Mitchell and Xavier Worthy has me very excited for this wide receiver class, because to be honest with you, once you get to wide receiver 4, there's a great debate. Who's it going to be? Is it Brian Thomas? It was Troy Franklin for a lot of people. And then that combine happened. And I don't know, it just did not look great. To be fair, Brian Thomas's combine, like the on the field, the drill stuff, I heard that didn't go. From the people who chart that kind of thing, it didn't go well. It didn't go as well as people thought it might. So for that reason, I've Adonai Mitchell here. And I still have Brian Thomas ranked this highly because I try not to, overvalue the combine, but it is something. So what do you think about this group of players? Do you want to talk about JJ McCarthy? You can kind of take it in whatever direction you want to take it in.
Yeah, I'll save him for a little later. First, I want to this isn't tight end premium. So you have Brock Bowers at 8 in standard tight end scoring.
7. He's at 7. I know it's kind of confusing.
Oh yeah, sorry, I'm looking at the cell. But yeah, so number 7. So you have Rome. I completely agree there. Rome's my wide receiver 4. He was going into the process. Troy Franklin was number 5. And then everything that Rome did on the field at the combine, on and off the field, it started with the sense to understand that if he has to land a plane in an emergency situation, everyone's dead. So we love someone with self-awareness.
Yeah.
And the competitive drive to stay on the field long after the combine is over because you told yourself you were going to hit a certain mark in the 3-cone drill and you wanted to go out there and do it. Doesn't matter if he got the time or not. That is not only looking great on his draft stock, but that's just the kind of guy and competitor that Rome is. He's incredibly athletic. He's a special route technician. He's got to be your wide receiver 4. I don't think there's much of a debate. And clearly
do you mean wide receiver 3?
Gosh, I'm
it's all good, dude. I knew what you were. I knew
it's
what you
these
were saying.
it's these damn spreadsheets,
Yeah.
the nerds have taken over and
the cockamamie. Yeah, blame the cockamamie spreadsheet. The incredibly sophisticated work that I've put into this spreadsheet for sure.
But what I said was true. I don't think there's any debate on the wide receiver 4, and I think you have it right.
3.
It's Adonai Mitchell.
Oh, 4. Okay.
Yeah, I'm getting there.
All right.
There.
All right.
Because Adonai Mitchell, there are 2 players in combine history, so they had to have tested to be the same, 6'2", 200-pound plus frame, run a sub 4.35 40, and have not looking at the vertical, but both hit the same vertical marks, and that's DK Metcalf and Adonai Mitchell. These 2 are very comparable from an athleticism standpoint. Now, what does Adonai Mitchell bring to the table that DK Metcalf didn't as a prospect? A route profile.
Yes.
He is incredibly smooth in and out of his breaks, and he's particularly good at, corner routes, comebacks, these different, sideline and over the middle of the field routes that DK Metcalf wasn't necessarily known for as a prospect. So we're looking at a guy who's more polished than DK Metcalf, doesn't necessarily have the college production, but 800 plus receiving yards and 11 touchdowns this year, while Xavier Worthy blew everyone away. And I love Xavier Worthy. I just don't think I love him enough to place him over Adonai Mitchell, a guy who has a more prototypical successful frame and athletic profile in the NFL. And so that's the separation between him and Xavier Worthy for me. I do have Worthy as my wide receiver 5 right ahead of Brian Thomas because Brian Thomas's field work wasn't that great, because he was only known for kind of doing one thing. What I told myself is I can't be pro Brian Thomas Jr. for the same reason I'm anti Keon Coleman. And that's because they're both one-dimensional and made a lot of their success going down the field and mossing people. And I said on previous podcasts that Keon Coleman reminded me of Brian Edwards.
Yeah.
And I do think Brian Thomas is more polished than Keon Coleman. But I don't think he's as talented as Xavier Worthy. So that's where I am on the upper and lower end of your rankings. I want you to talk about Brock Bowers, but first, actually, you talk about Brock Bowers, and then I'll talk about McCarthy at the end.
Oh yeah, because we have to get to your McCarthy, and
every show.
Leave us some questions in the comments, and we'll get to some of those towards the end. I think
absolutely.
We're going to have time. If you have questions about rookies, we'll get to those. But Brock Bowers, to me, and I talked about this with Memphis Young, and when I am perplexed by a player, I like to talk about it with somebody that I trust, and Memphis is as good as they come in the dynasty industry. And if you're not tuned into the Dynasty War Zone, you should be. I think they're back to Sunday nights. So a quick plug there. And there's this news or noise segment that we did. And he said, is it news or noise? Brock Bowers is the best tight end prospect of all time. And I was like, wait a minute, what? There's some people who think this? What? Why? What? Why? Did they not see the Iowa tight ends come? And I'm not saying that those guys were considered great
Right.
prospects at the time, but there's so many great tight end prospects that have come through the NFL. And while I believe that Brock Bowers is unbelievable, he's great. And if you get him at pick, 7, where I have him ranked, I mean, like I said, it's no disrespect to him. This is a non-tight end premium format. I just don't know if selecting Brock Bowers ahead of some of these quarterbacks, definitely not the 3 wide receivers in this kind of format, is something that I would do. And we also have to be worried about the relatively recent tight end performances.
Yep.
Like, I'm sure a lot of people are going to cite Sam Laporta. Guys, that doesn't happen that just doesn't, what Sam Laporta did in his rookie year just doesn't happen. We get a lot more Michael Mayer seasons than we do Sam Laporta seasons. So what's probably going to happen with Brock Bowers is you're going to draft him. Who knows where he winds up, right? Hopefully not. I guess Arthur Smith's out of Atlanta, so I guess Atlanta's safe now. But the landing spot's going to matter, I believe, for Brock Bowers. And he's probably going to have a Dalton Kincaid-esque season or a Michael Mayer-esque season, probably, and his value is probably going to go down a little bit. Who knows? Like, so again, out of all these top guys, he's the one that concerns me the most. And that's no disrespect to him. It's just based on the history of the tight end position, based on like Kyle Pitts. Kyle Pitts was he's a very different player, but he was talked about in a very similar way that Brock Bowers is being talked about right now. And look, like Kyle Pitts, he got stuck in that situation with Arthur Smith, and hopefully better days are ahead. But you see what I'm saying here with the rookie tight ends.
I think I do see what you're saying there, but I was expecting to hear a pro Bowers argument as to why he was your rookie 7 in the draft, and all I got was this: I have a lot of concerns for Brock Bowers. So,
to me, I feel like I have him conservatively ranked there. You don't agree?
No, not at
okay,
all.
Where
not non-tight end premium. There's
where would you have him?
I think 7 is around where his ADP is going to land at. So for me personally, in quarterback premium, he might be quarterback premium, super flex, probably 8 or 9.
8 or 9.
So not very far below. I think he's a super talent.
So you're chastising me for putting him at 7, and you
no.
would put him at 8 or 9?
I'm not chastising you for putting him at 7. I was just confused because I was expecting an argument as to why he deserves to be a top 7 prospect in this class, and I got a lot of very valid concerns. But I think at the end of the day, that kind of speaks to his profile because of everything you just said. We both kind of agree that 7 to 9 is the range.
Well,
so
some
that's
people
just
think
who he is. That's the upside he can have is worth that pick.
Some people think, and this would be in tight end premium. So again, this is not the format we're talking about specifically tonight. But some people think in these tight end premium leagues, maybe these super tight end premium leagues, that he could be 1 or 2 off the board. And I'm just I don't even think. Even in a tight end premium league, I think I would have him in this range. I just speaking from having played in some of those formats and talking exactly what I just mentioned. I don't know if I can have him much higher than where he is. So again, even if we're talking about tight end premium, I don't know if it matters all that much, to be honest with you. But
no, I agree. In tight end premium, maybe relative to a couple other players he moves, but if the entire position group is getting a 1.5 bonus or whatever, the position, the goalposts don't really move that much. So you do get the chance to kind of the top third kind of expand, and that's the potential of drafting Brock Bowers at 4 through 7 in a tight end premium is because if you do get that same Laporta, but that all boils down to risk aversion. So I'm generally a more aggressive dynasty player, but this is a time where I'm going to be a little bit more conservative, just like you said, because of the concerns with the position group. So we're aligned on Brock Bowers. It's time for me to talk about JJ McCarthy.
Oh boy, here we go.
So the thing about JJ McCarthy is I'm not even that far out on him. It's the extremists who are on Twitter and they don't have one negative thing to say about him. And that's what really gets me. You're not going to act like he has any downsides, any negatives, any unknowns. This is ridiculous. So, they post these highlight reels. Oh, the second thing that was really funny, he was getting praised for his crazy third down success rate. There was a chart where he was just far and away above everybody else. Yep, the data was wrong. So for 2 weeks, he was getting glorified for a chart that had invalid data. Turns out he's, lumped in with the rest of the good quarterbacks in this class. And that's what I think he is, a good quarterback. He is not a top 15 talent. I don't care what Louis Riddick says, but he's a late first round to early second round pick in a real NFL draft. And I'm willing to concede that. And getting into a top 15 pick, we've never seen a player put up McCarthy's numbers. And look, I know in highlights he looks really good, but reception perception charted his performance. It wasn't very good. His charts were average to below average in every single category of the route tree other than the screen pass. I don't know if we can put it up. I'll put the tweet in the chat so that everyone can see it. If you want to navigate and go check out that chart. But
yeah, we could probably show it too if you want, like once we're all done.
Yeah, we'll show it later. But McCarthy, that all being said, in Superflex leagues, he's a first round pick. I know we had that whole talk about bumping up quarterbacks just to bump them up. But in this case, he's still a first round pick. And this is the hilarious thing about it, because I'm the JJ McCarthy hater now. And I feel like I just have a very reasonable take on him. He's got a lot of untapped potential, a lot of upside, a lot of positives to his game, but he's raw. He's unpolished. And when you hear the phrase untapped potential, my mind just goes to Zach Wilson every single time. We've seen these guys make throws that they need to make at the next level in bits and pieces. But McCarthy makes a lot of dumb mistakes on the field too. Made a lot of really bad throws. Yeah. A lot of throws that should have been intercepted. He's not a top 8 pick in my mind either. He's 10 to 12. Unless he gets that draft capital. Again, I'll have to change my tune. If he gets selected in the first round to Atlanta or Minnesota or steps into a really good situation, you have to understand that his value has drastically changed. But the fact of the matter is, he has a higher bust potential than any of the 3 other quarterbacks. And you can get a similar upside for cheaper with Bo Nix or Spencer Rattler, maybe even Michael Penix Jr., depending on where the value is. So JJ McCarthy is a first round pick. The only way I can see him pushing into 8 is if he gets that top 15 draft capital, which I don't think he's going to get. He's getting the Will Levis treatment.
Oh my God.
He's getting the Will Levis treatment.
Oh my God.
Draft day. The odds were so positive that Will Levis was going top 10. It would be irresponsible to even place a bet on it.
Dude, I'm telling you right now.
In the second round, it feels the same.
Dude, man,
if he didn't win the national championship, would we be having this conversation right now? If Alabama won that game like they should have, would we be having this conversation right now?
I'm not saying that a lot of the things you're saying aren't validated, but to me, and you can let us know in the chat what you think. I don't think there's any way he's getting past 12 with Denver in their situation right now. That's
a horrible situation. Like,
well, I'm not okay.
Count
Fine.
me so far out on JJ McCarthy if the Denver Broncos draft him. They're planning on trading away Sutton and Judy. Who's he going to throw the ball to?
I'm just saying. That seems like a Sean Payton move. That's a Sean Payton guy.
Why not roll with Stidham and suck and just try again next year?
That probably makes more sense. But we're talking about alpha males who want to win and feel like
that's true. We can never bank on organizations to do the responsible thing. I say that all the time, like when doing free agency predictions and all those things. Like, these people have personalities and they generally act towards their personality. So it would be very Sean Payton for that to happen.
Yeah, and I saw something too, and it might have been Diana Rossini, who's extremely reliable. That said basically, don't be surprised if it goes quarterback, 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 and then somebody trades up for a quarterback. So that I'm assuming that quarterback 4 would be JJ McCarthy.
I'm not buying that either.
No, I crazier things have happened, my friend.
I understand the report, and there probably is a kernel of truth as you heard to it. I'm not questioning the accuracy of the report or anything like that. But we get a lot of reports on this. There's always usually that hype, and then the draft just does not go the way we expect it to. I don't think it would be that surprising for it to happen, which is why I don't think it will happen. Someone's going to take Marvin Harrison Jr. or a tackle. There's going to be a switch up. I don't think we've ever seen 4 quarterbacks go right off the rip, and I don't know if we ever will.
Fair. Well, what I heard and all that is JJ McCarthy is the next Zach Wilson. So anyway, moving on, I'm going to do the next 2 to round out the first round, and it's not a secret really. Xavier Worthy's here. I didn't want to discount Troy Franklin too much. Some people are really, really discounting him, and these rankings are fresh off the press. So I moved him down. He's still in my first round. I still like a lot of what I see on tape. Is that a big mistake, Matt Babich, to have Troy Franklin this high?
It's a really interesting conversation. Wait, you said it's a mistake to have him this high?
Yeah.
Oh, no. I don't think so. Because remember, again, flashback to the episode last week with John. We were talking a lot of very positive things with Troy Franklin, and John has a model that's been very successful in the past, and it loves Troy Franklin. So I'm not willing to just throw away everything that we've seen. Now, was it really bad that he couldn't run in a straight line in the gauntlet? Yeah, that was a bad look.
Yeah.
But athletically, he tested fine. Like, we shouldn't overreact too much. But here's what I like about your rankings. Adonai Mitchell and Xavier Worthy are above Troy Franklin. And again, it's this internal battle that I face of not wanting to react too much to the combine and just basking in what Xavier Worthy and Adonai Mitchell did, both on the field at Texas and then athletically in the combine and running routes. Those two are just incredible playmakers. And I think the debate is closer to Brian Thomas versus Troy Franklin. That's where I draw the line. And I'm inching closer to moving Brian Thomas down underneath Troy Franklin. I've thought a lot about my stance on Brian Thomas since Cody told me he wasn't very special. That's when I was like, maybe I need to listen to Cody Carpentier and do a little bit more digging on Brian Thomas. And I believe it was something close to like over 40% of his production was from like goes and fades. Just deep down the field. It's not a very good sign. I know Neighbors is incredibly versatile, and if you can deploy him in different situations, why are you going to move Brian Thomas around if he works as a deep threat? But again, like Denzel Mims, Brian Edwards, Hakeem Bustler, N'Keal Harry, guys who lived at just going straight down the field and jumping over them, all of them incredibly athletic. All of them are incredibly athletic. And so it does feel like Brian Thomas Jr. is a lot closer to Keon Coleman than I had previously admitted, just because of the highlights. They were very flashy and I kind of fell in love with them. But after further review, even with the combine, I'm still taking Troy Franklin over Brian Thomas Jr. But aside from that flip, I honestly really like your ranking so far. So I don't think I've had a lot of contention with it so far, other than May flipping with Daniels. JJ McCarthy maybe 1 or 2 spots down, Bowers maybe a spot down, and then Troy Franklin over Brian Thomas Jr. But I want to hear a little bit more about your thoughts as to, what led you to putting Xavier Worthy and Troy Franklin there.
Well, I'll say this. This is the part of the rankings where it's still becoming clearer and clearer every day. I think it's kind of like the RB1 conversation. It's like before the combine, if you asked 5 different people, who's your wide receiver 4? Some people would have said Brian Thomas Jr. Some people would have said Adonai Mitchell. Some people would have said Xavier Worthy, right? And this, to me, is the most challenging part to rank because you're still in the first round. So it's really, really important. And not to say that obviously all the rankings are important, right, but this is still a prominent ranking, but these guys are so close in my evaluation. And really it comes down to size, right? And I'm not going to go down, like, I don't know. I feel like I need to combat the boring Xavier Worthy take where, oh, if you run fast at the combine, you're just another John Ross and you're not going to amount to much.
Yeah,
right? It's that's a lazy Barney at the bar, had too many beers kind of take that, if somebody who doesn't know much about football might, spout off just without a second's thought. But like Xavier Worthy is just really good at getting down the field and getting opened. And I didn't know, like, he was dealing with a broken hand, and I guess I must have missed that. Like Alex Dunlap, who covers the Texas football team, said that on the Mind of Mansion today. So again, super impressive playing through a broken hand. And honestly, like Brian Thomas Jr., Xavier Worthy, to me, it comes down to that size and playing the outside receiver and Brian Thomas Jr. And I'm kind of concerned about that 160-pound frame. I know we had Tank Dell last year, but again, like, that seems to be an outlier. So that's, to me, it's so close. It's so close, but it really came down to the size and what Brian Thomas Jr. can do and what I think he can develop into at the next level. I think he can work on some of these things. So again, so you got your tweets here. I think now's a good time for an informative segment break from the Podfather. And when we come back, it'll be a quick minute. While you're here, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, give the video a like. We really appreciate that. If you're liking it, if you want more of it, we have you covered here on the Player Profiler YouTube channel, all the way up till draft day, all the way up after draft day, whatever you want to know more about Dynasty rookies, best ball content, redraft we'll have coming up. I mean, Theo just dropped the press coverage here, like, today, I think.
Today.
Dropped it. Yeah, today, right before
with JJ McCarthy's biggest fan. He had a press coverage with JJ McCarthy's biggest fan. So if you want to hear the pro McCarthy, go check out that episode.
Anyway, but we got a boogie, so I got to find this Dynasty Dominator promo. There it is. All right. So here's a message from the Podfather. We'll be right back. Don't go anywhere. See you on the other side.
Now, I know many of you are looking for a secret weapon for your Dynasty League, and I have it. It's called the Dynasty Dominator app. You go to the App Store, go to Google Play. It's right there. It's $5 to download, and then every year it's $5 to load the next incoming class of rookies. You can add Superflex, add tight end premium. It's incredible because it allows you to look up players. It allows you to vote on whether a player is a buy, hold, or sell, and then see the market sentiment on that player. And you can compare their lifetime value rating from Player Profiler to their Dynasty ADP at the FFPC, all in the price lookup tool. And beyond that, we have a trade analyzer, so you'll never lose another Dynasty trade again. And in our settings, you can set this is a win now team, this is a rebuilding team, and then we let you compare players. Look at their metrics side by side, prospect metrics, NFL metrics. It's all there. It's $5 in the App Store. There's some add-ons for Superflex and to buy the upcoming rookie class. Every year, you're going to spend $5 on this thing, and it's going to be well worth it.
Go get the Dynasty Dominator app today. Again, it's only $5. I know you got to pay $5 every year, and that's kind of annoying, but really it isn't, because this is a tool that I use just about every day. I get Dynasty trades. I've gotten a few of them this evening, maybe one as we've been on the air. Like, I get Dynasty trades all the time. And if I'm ever unsure about, what values are, I always just go to the Dynasty Dominator. It's the best $5 you can spend, I think. And also, we already promoted this show, but we're going to promote it twice. You need to be watching the Dynasty Warzone with Memphis Young and Jerry Sinclair Sunday nights. It's a great way to get ready for the week. Those guys are some of the best Dynasty minds in the business. Also, like and subscribe right now. You can do it. You just have to click. So anyway.
It's as easy as ranking Rome Odunze as your wide receiver 3. You just go over and you click subscribe. It's that simple.
There you go. I'm gonna go 6 because I realized when you're doing a top 12, it doesn't make much sense to reveal 5 at a time. You have the weird 2 at the end.
It's not really divisible by 2. Nice.
All right.
Changing the text color. That's good enough.
Oh well.
Trey Benson though, RB1.
Yep, Trey Benson, RB1. This is kind of where you're getting into the second round. These are my guys. I'm gonna fight for my guys. I love Trey Benson. He's my RB1. He was my RB1 before the combine. He's my RB1 now. I think he's got size and speed, and he can catch the ball out of the backfield. And, Roman Wilson, another one of my guys. Roman Wilson, I know beyond the field in the combine, he didn't chart as well as we would have liked, I don't think. But again, I love him. Like, and as I was going through this process, it's like I'm gonna rank these guys how I'm F it, kind of. I like Roman Wilson. I'm gonna put him at wide receiver 7, and I think he reminds me so much of Amon-Ra St. Brown, and I'm not saying he is. Like, I'm not saying he is. I'll say this. He reminds me of Amon-Ra St. Brown and Jaden Reed. Those are kind of my 2 comps. Like, and I think he's gonna go towards the end of the second round. Like, I think he's going to go in the same general area as, Jaden Reed went in your drafts, unless some people catch on. So I probably am way above consensus on Roman Wilson compared to most people. But what do you think, man? What do you think of these 6 right here?
So I'll start with the receivers because I'm really in lockstep with you. So I'll start with what I really like about this set. And that's Ladd McConkey following Troy Franklin in the rankings. He is honestly a guy who I could see pushing myself above Brian Thomas Jr. once landing spots in draft capital are all settled. Because is there another guy that has boosted his value through the Senior Bowl and pre-draft process more than Ladd McConkey? And I remember speaking negatively about him at first, saying I don't understand where the hype was from, but similarly to Charles Barkley trying churros for the first time, I see what the hype is about. This dude is silky smooth, and seeing, shout out to Jetpack Galileo of the FF Astronauts for posting or gathering a ton of film and posting just a ton of clips out on Twitter through this pre-draft process. Ladd McConkey, every single route is so well thought out and well executed. And that's going to translate to the next level. We do not have to knock him extremely for being in a Georgia offense that didn't pass the ball a lot. Similarly to why we can't knock Roman Wilson for the same thing. His market share was high for his team, and that's what matters. Did he command a significant amount of the team's offense? That's how we equalize and normalize the amount of production that changes from offense to offense. So I think your wide receiver structure here is very sound. Devontae Walker, I haven't decided necessarily what to do with Devontae Walker. I think I like Jalen Polk more. So it's an internal debate, and it's one of those ones where someone says, I have Devontae Walker in this spot, and I say I have Jalen Polk.
Dude, Jalen Polk's hands are some of the best hands I've seen. Like, he's got great, like, he just catches everything. Like, I love Jalen Polk. I think that's a great call by you.
And what I love seeing on the film is catching outside of the frame and attacking the ball. That's a trait that translates incredibly well. And honestly, I need to, just being transparent, I need to do a little bit more homework on Devontae Walker. He's a guy where he's getting a lot of buzz right now. He had a 900-yard season last year, I believe at the age of 21 years old, 11 touchdowns, and 89th percentile speed as well. So he's very, very fast. From what I've seen from him online, the film is good. So again, not going to get too much deeper into that. I like where it's at. I just don't necessarily have Devontae Walker in that exact spot. Now, the highlight of all of this is you have passed the Jalen Wright test. There's a lot of tests with rookie rankings, and the Jalen Wright test is he needs to be RB3, right around there, because he has all of the tools. It's just that case where maybe he's a little undersized. And you say what you want about James Cook, but he did it. He went out there and he was an RB2. And in the back half of the season, if that would have been the entire season, James Cook might have pushed to be closer to a top 15 running back. So there's a lot of value in this size frame when you're a talented runner. And that's what Jalen Wright is. He's talented. He's explosive. He's not necessarily known for catching passes, but he can. And this is a soft RB class. We got guys like Jonathan Brooks, Audric Estime that have a lot of holes in their profile. They're not necessarily athletic. They don't have the hands. They don't have the receiving history. Jalen Wright checks a lot more boxes. I think Blake Corum is RB1. Trey Benson, I think there are some issues with his film. The fact that he lacks the pass catching chops. Blake Corum actually had a sneaky good target share and receiving production for how low volume of a passing offense that Michigan was. And I think Blake's getting a little underrated for that. I believe he had over a 6% target share at that Michigan team that past Roman Wilson was pretty much dividing the targets evenly across everyone on the roster. So the fact that Blake Corum carved out a near 7% target share on a low volume offense is something that I appreciate. And for all of the reasons we were knocking Trey Benson on last week's episode is why I'm not necessarily sold on him. But even so, I don't think the RB1 is the first pick of the second round in a draft. Now, we've been over this a million times. We have to wait for landing spot and draft capital. That can fluctuate so many things. But right now, without knowing this, I can't rank a guy like Trey Benson above Ladd McConkey, maybe Roman Wilson. That's where we start to get real ambiguous with it and starts to depend on team need. But Ladd McConkey is a guy who I see closer to the end of the Troy Franklin tier than the beginning of this new tier. So I slightly disagree with your running back rankings. I think overall having 3 running backs in the top 17 is a little overvalued just because they're the top running backs in the class, but we could have a very different discussion after draft day. So, I'm lukewarm on this set of rankings, but I think positionally, interpositionally, you check most of the boxes.
Yeah, Trey Benson to me is my RB1. I mentioned that Blake Corum is about as, like running in between the tackles, great feet, great vision. Is like I think he's gonna have day 2 draft capital. I just do, and I think Jalen Wright, man, like if you look hard enough, if you squint hard enough, I've said this before. Kenneth Walker, man, like he's got the breakaway speed that you're looking for, and his like you mentioned his size. Like 210, like 5'10", 210. I think that's good enough for me as far as size goes. So yeah, he's got that. He's out of all these running backs, it's like Trey Benson and Jalen Wright, especially Jalen Wright, has that home run hitting ability. And Maddie, and you got to talk these things out with people that you trust. And like Maddie Kiwoom has been hot on the Jalen Wright trail this whole time. And the combine performance, I dug into the tape, and it swung me. Like this guy's got real potential and real breakaway speed, and it's not a lot of running backs in this class have that. So it's a rare thing in this class. So okay, I'm gonna go ahead.
You do that. I will say that. So like we'll talk landing spot wise. You think he's gonna get day 2 capital? If he goes to a team like Baltimore, Trey Benson, I think where you have it's pretty much perfect. In fact, he might sneak up into the first round just because he'd be the RB1 if that was the landing spot. So that's where I think we agree, but we disagree in like the very slightest of ways, because we're not having rookie drafts until after the draft anyway. So it's important to have these discussions and talk about where people will move. And so that's why I think when you're within a couple of position ranks at this point, I can essentially live with it.
Gotcha. Just real quick, I don't want to put you on the spot here, but who's your RB1 and where would you feel comfortable taking them in a format like this?
Blake Corum at 15 or 16.
All right. And that's basically where I have them, except I have Trey Benson ahead. And that's where we disagree.
And that's in a vacuum. In an actual situation, when you have to read a draft room, if I'm sitting at, 13 and I need a running back, and I think, and Blake Corum lands in a good spot with potential fantasy value, I'm willing to pull the trigger earlier in my rankings, which is why I think it's very important to have rankings to understand in a vacuum where you're putting all these people. But when you're in draft day and you have your specific team needs, that's when you shouldn't just be saying, oh, this guy's the top of my ranking, so I'm just going to click the button on him. There's a lot of differential. I might be inclined to take Blake Corum over Brian Thomas and Troy Franklin if all three are on the board, if I don't need a receiver. If I'm lacking at receiver and need those guys to hit, then maybe I switch my cadence. But you see what I'm saying?
Yeah, I would look to trade down if that was the case. But yes, I get what you're
saying. It's harder to execute. Like
the
average league, it's not as easy to trade back as we want to say it is.
You're right. Or maybe trade that pick for a running back,
something like but
that.
If you can't do a trade and you're forced to pick.
See, I'm stubborn. I always find I'm just kidding.
You did make a lot of trades in our dynasty startup.
Oh, buddy. If you've never been in a startup with me, you're missing out. I like to fire the trades all over the place. All right. So here we go. This will take us through 25. And there's a polarizing player on here. Well, a few actually. A lot of people like Braylon Allen. I'm not one of them. Okay, I'll just say that right off the gate. And I know, like, before the process even started, he was some people's RB1. And to me, he's and from what I heard at the combine, again, he didn't run the 40, which is not a great look. And Audric Estime absolutely broke my heart with his 4.7 40, because I love the tape on him. I love the tape, but a 4.7 40, like, I don't know what it is about these Notre Dame running backs, like Kyron Williams. And it was worse with Kyron Williams because Kyron Williams was undersized. And like Estime has the excuse, well, he's a bigger running back, but still, like 4.7. Disaster. So Audric Estime is pushed into my third round, as you can see. Marshawn Lloyd got a bump up, but Braylon Allen to me is in between the tackles. He's pretty good. He's got pretty good feet, but to me, struggled pass in the receiving game. He wasn't very efficient there, and he struggled running outside the tackle. So I just see him as kind of a limited player. And again, landing spot's going to matter for him. Like you said, if he gets that Baltimore like landing spot, yeah, he's gonna go up the rankings because pairing him with Keaton Mitchell makes some sense, and he can play that Gus Edwards role that, honestly, like, they should have run the ball more with Gus Edwards when they played the Chiefs, and maybe they realize that, and maybe that's why they take a Braylon Allen. I don't know. He seems to be a Baltimore type of guy, but I'm just not there with him. I think he's a very limited player. Like I said, I would much prefer Jonathan Brooks and Marshawn Lloyd, so I have them ranked where I do. And another player, Keon Coleman, who didn't have the greatest of combines. Like, it was kind of mixed reviews, and we were really trying to figure out who Keon Coleman is. But I think we're left with just as many questions as we had before the combine. Like, he ran a 4.6, I think he ran a 4.6.
He ran a 4.6, but he ran the fastest gauntlet. He recorded the fastest speed at the gauntlet. Like, that's really.
That's what I'm saying. Like, so there was some good and some bad, but this is kind of where I've settled with him for now. And I like, he's another guy who could rise or who could fall, like, through the draft capital, landing spot. All these things matter, but this is where I have him right now. And then the last thing I'll say is Bo Nix. is quite easily my quarterback 5, but he's quite a ways down the rankings just because, even in a super flex, I just don't see it. His ability to throw outside the numbers is not where I would like to see it. Like he's not as consistent, and he didn't have a great Senior Bowl. So this is kind of where I have him. You could say maybe I should have him higher, but what do you think? What do you think of this 6 to round out the top 25, which is what we promised people in the show title?
I continue to think that even in a vacuum, you're overrating running backs, because I don't see a lot to be impressed with Jonathan Brooks besides what's on film. And while I do have a firm respect for the film community, and I like even chopping it up in the film room myself, I think that we see a lot of running backs in the college game that have good film, but they don't necessarily translate. And I think Marshawn Lloyd's above Jonathan Brooks in my rankings. Braylon Allen is not in my top 25. Marshawn Lloyd are closer to the back end of my top 25. I would say Marshawn Lloyd's probably at 20 or 21, and then Jonathan Brooks closer to 24, and then Braylon Allen outside of the top 25. Nothing impresses me about this running back class. So why would I waste a second round pick on one of these running backs and hope that they make it, where I can trade the pick for a more certain asset, or I can wait into the next year? We talk about the waiver wire additions that become relevant running backs every single year. So why are you forcing yourself to use second round draft capital on a running back with a low probability of success? I don't think guys like Jonathan Brooks and Braylon Allen are going to be pushed into the second round of drafts. It's more likely that we start seeing them closer to the middle of the third round. And that's when it's good to have that draft capital. But when you're the RB, 3, 4, 5, and you're all in the mid to back of the third round, the NFL is saying that they don't really value you that high. And so that's a big note for me, is I don't think these guys are expected to get high draft capital. And it's a pass catching league in fantasy football. Guys like Malachi Corley should be above these guys. Now I'll transition into the receivers that you have ranked. I'm so far out on Keon Coleman. I'm so far out. I have Malik Washington ahead of Keon Coleman. I have Ricky Pearsall ahead of Keon Coleman. No, I don't. I take that back. But it's close. I have Jacob Cowing right in that tier. I don't have Xavier Legette very high either. I like the guys who produced in college. I tend to think that that's the type of profile I want to draft. So a guy like Jacob Cowing doesn't have the size, but he completely powered his passing offense in Arizona. Malik Washington, played at Virginia, didn't necessarily have the counting stats, but completely propelled his team at Washington. I'm sorry. You broke me reading that private chat. We've been sitting in here thinking that there are over 700 people in the stream for a really long time. And Seth just said that YouTube says 35 are in the, I've been looking at that thing. It makes way more sense. I've been looking at that counter the entire time, thinking like, holy shit, this is the best episode we've ever had. Like
we're going to take over. We're going to take over.
Something felt wrong where like it hasn't gone down the entire episode. Like it fluctuates, but we've steadily risen from like 100 to over 730 here at minute 58 of the show.
Yeah, I don't. Anyway, it's still a good episode. We don't want to disparage.
That's really funny. A little disappointing, but really funny as well.
Yeah.
But
anyway,
when you get to the back end of the second round, you're going to start to get a lot of mix-ups in rankings. And so guys like Keon Coleman and Xavier Legette, I'm not touching in the second round. Keon Coleman doesn't necessarily have the athletic profile and the versatility. Legette doesn't have the production profile at all. And I'll give him the fact that he's learning the receiver position because he hasn't played it for a long time. But if you're telling me there's going to be a learning curve for him at the next level, why am I touching him? If I'm going to have to wait till year 2 or 3 for him to fully get it and start producing, I could have already drafted 2 more productive receivers in between that time. So Leggett has a lot of flash and a lot of potential. But again, when we look at prospects that are purely untapped potential, how many times do they pan out? It's very rare. So I'm going to take a guy that has a better production profile that may not have the requisite size that lands in a situation where they can get some manufactured touches and have some fantasy value that way. Bo Nix, though, I want to highlight that real quick. I know we're at an hour, but Bo Nix should be going at the end of the second round. So I think that's a very good place for him. He's a guy who the NFL might be higher on than a lot of the fantasy community right now. I think there's a lot of positives to Bo Nix. As soon as he transferred from Auburn and got out of that god-awful situation he was in, got into a pass-friendly offense with some talent surrounding him, and he started producing some big numbers. So Bo Nix, he's old. He didn't produce right away, but he has the tools. And, I do believe that if he gets a chance to sit behind a starter for a year, maybe an ambiguous QB situation like the Steelers where he can figure out a way to get into the starting lineup, I'm in on Bo Nix.
I think that's good assessment. I think I'm just a little bit higher on the running backs than you are.
Yep.
So I think that's kind of what our differences are. So yeah, I think we'll have to maybe flip this next time. Maybe you can present your rankings and then I can react to them, or maybe not. I don't know. We'll have to talk about that. But I think this was a good show. As I promised, I want to get to a couple of your questions. We have, let's see, Joel Yabara in the chat. What's your ideal landing spot for Bowers, Matt?
Ooh. What about Los Angeles?
Ooh, like if the Chargers took him?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think that's who I would take if I had the pick, but is there a better offense he can step into in a tight end role immediately, like in the range of where he's likely to be drafted?
I don't think so. I think Los Angeles is the answer. I had the, hold on, let me go through would the Giants excite you? No.
No,
right?
not at all.
Tennessee? No.
No.
God, I don't want Chicago to take him. Atlanta, they already have Kyle Pitts. So
actually,
no.
I want to change my mind. I could get I can get behind Tennessee.
Okay.
It depends on what they do. New regime, they're not going to be super run heavy. We got the Bengals pass game coordinator, so someone who has exposure to a really well-run passing offense. And if they're dedicated to surrounding Will Levis with talent, if they get a guy in free agency, they still have DeAndre Hopkins, and then they draft Brock Bowers. I could see that being. I mean, this is a guy who threw over 40 times a game, or in a game multiple times last season. So if he's going to be getting games with 40 plus pass attempts, with 18% of those, let's be more conservative and say 12 to 15% of those coming his way. Yeah, I can get behind Tennessee.
All right, maybe Tennessee. I'm gonna go. Depending on Las Vegas, I don't see him dropping out of the top 10 though. That's the thing. I certainly don't see him dropping out of the top 15. So maybe Las Vegas. I don't know. Like that might. But I think the perfect spot for him is if the Chargers decide to go tight end that early. I think that would be absolutely with Justin Herbert smash spot. All right, hold on. Let me see if I can find. This is great radio. Somebody's excited about soccer in the chat.
What are we talking about soccer in here for? I am excited about the World Cup, like on a real level. But why? What are we talking about soccer in here?
I don't know. That is a version of football.
We got Papa Babich in the chat. He's at 4 in his league. He needs a tight end. Does he reach for Bowers if a top 3 receiver is on the board? I can't see doing that even in a tight end premium league where I need a tight end. What's our thoughts there?
I agree. I think if there's a top 3 wide receiver, I'm going Rome Odunze over Brock Bowers, for example. That's just even in a super flex league. Heck, even in a tight end premium league, I think I'm doing that. I just did like the tight end, the tight end rookie landscape is. I mean, the Sam Laportas of the world are the outlier, right? Those kinds of seasons. Like it's not very likely that Brock Bowers is going to become the tight end one in Dynasty, like Sam Laporta has become for some people. So the tight end is a cautionary tale. It's a cautionary position. I wish it weren't the case, but it just kind of is. So for that reason, out of all the players in the top 8 picks, Brock Bowers is the one that concerns me. Like, am I going to be pressing the button on him if I'm at 7 and he's there? Yeah, probably. But again, that would be an extreme value. So that tells me probably I'm not going to wind up with a ton of Brock Bowers. That's probably how it's going to shake out.
Yeah, I think you nailed it on the head, and so did the chat. If you maybe a situation where you can try and trade back a couple picks to get Bowers, but at the end of the day, if you can't force it and you can't move back, that's a situation where I'm not willing to go and finagle my rankings just because I need a tight end. We got to consider the positional scarcity and just the lower production volume as a whole from the tight end position. And when you get a guy that can be a superstar wide receiver, then you go with that guy.
Very good. Very good. And let's get to this tweet here. Let me bring it up and share it, see if I can.
Yeah, the first one is a McCarthy tweet, and then the second one's an Xavier Worthy film clip that'll really show the people why Xavier Worthy is special. And it's not just, he ran fast at the combine. It's that, he ran this fast at the combine, and he's this good. This guy's a problem.
All right, I'm going to share my screen. We're going to see how this goes. I think this is the first one. What happened?
I mean, look at it.
Oh, you're laughing because he's terrible. Or he's good at throwing screen.
People are talking about him in such a way that you'd think his first name stands for Jesus. Like this guy has no faults to some people in the community, and it hurts because I love Derek Brown. Like he's one of my favorite content creators, and like I just can't get behind. I understand this is reception perception is one of my very trusted sources for information like this. Success rates on the route tree. That's what Matt Harmon has built his reputation on, and he's really good at it. So when I see this chart that says in most areas of the field, McCarthy is average or below average, that concerns me. Pile that on with not a lot of pass attempts. And I saw a tweet, by the way, if you see this tweet, that's like JJ McCarthy threw the most first half passes, not including screens. Just throw that stat out because screens are a valid pass attempt. And while I haven't done the digging, I can almost guarantee you that the screens were taken out for a reason and it was narrative driven. But what routes did JJ McCarthy struggle to throw at the combine? Outs.
Yeah.
The breaking routes to the outside of the field. He struggled with those. The pro McCarthy crowd didn't want to put out those tweets. They didn't want to show those clips, but they were real, and he was missing guys. And people even tried blaming Adonai Mitchell for being in the wrong spot. I have news flat. He ran from one cone to the next cone. The cones are set up. Here's a little known fact about the combine. The cones are set up to show you exactly where to go. And JJ McCarthy didn't throw it to the cone. He threw it 3 yards behind the cone and 5 yards over the cone. That's a bad throw. So again, and like we get back to the conclusion of I don't even hate McCarthy, but we can't act like these things don't exist.
Okay, that's very fair. And I'll stop presenting that one, and we'll present this other one. Share screen. Hit the jetpack. Hopefully, anyway. So can we, let's play this clip. Is that what you want to play?
Yeah. So watch how. So you see the arrow going to the right. The cornerback has inside leverage from the start of the play. Watch how Worthy starts to break to the outside and attack that cornerback's blind spot. His back is turned to the ball. You see the arrow go, and then as soon as this cornerback flips his hips, boom, he cuts to the inside, and there's no way they're catching him. It was an underthrown ball, which is the only reason why it wasn't a touchdown. That right there, it's one film clip, but it's the perfect example of why Xavier Worthy deserves to be so high in these rankings and in NFL mock drafts, because at that speed, being that sharp and being able to work that leverage and attack blind spots, manipulate the corner, as the tweet says, blind spot manipulation. That's really impressive. These are the things that Justin Jefferson really shined on in college, that this same account, Jetpack Galileo, broke down. And that's what's made him so successful at the next level. So seeing Xavier Worthy do just that is one of the reasons why he needs to be very high in your rankings.
Well said. Well said. And like I said, that Brian Thomas, Xavier Worthy ranking, like those players are so close in my evaluation. And by the end of it, who knows? Xavier Worthy might be ahead of him. But that was my biggest struggle point with those three wide receivers, to be honest with you. So again, the process is not over. This is a Bayesian process for a reason.
Exactly.
And we're going to continue to talk about it. We're going to continue to evaluate these players. But until next time, Matt, why don't you promote what you have to promote for the people?
Absolutely. So I've been continuing my free agency article series on playerprofiler.com/articles. Go check it out. As we saw, the franchise tag deadline passed. Guys like Josh Jacobs, Tony Pollard, I predicted did not get the franchise tag. Saquon Barkley was like one of the first in the series, so I did get that one wrong. I thought he was going to get franchise tagged. About a week after that released, I figured that was not going to be the case. That one was released like almost a month ago at this point. But we've been breaking down all the top free agents. Calvin Ridley's an interesting name right now, so you can go check out my breakdown on Calvin Ridley, Baker Mayfield, Kirk Cousins. You can check all these out on playerprofiler.com/articles. A couple more to come as we work our way through the free agency period. I was writing Dalton Schultz when the news broke of the contract extension. So that was fun. Got halfway through that article and just had to throw it in the trash. But other than that, you can find me on the Player Profiler News YouTube channel Saturdays at 6 p.m., hosting Player Profiler Today on Saturday evenings. And then a good amount of Mondays, you'll be able to find me on Mock Draft Live.
Awesome. Yeah, you should do all those things. I might be on Mock Draft Live at some point as well. I've been on a couple of them, so I always find a way, as a YouTube manager, to just kind of, post in my way, just kind of pry my way in.
As YouTube manager and somebody who is in the group of people who is allowed to sign up for however many Mock Draft Live dates you want.
Yeah, I guess that's true.
Because you're a trusted and very good content creator for Player Profiler, not just because you're the YouTube manager.
I see here. Well, thank you. But anyway, if you want more of my content creation, you can, subscribe to the YouTube channel here. I'm pretty much all over it. You can like the video. That would be much appreciated. You can follow me on Twitter at Seth_Diewold. You can follow me on YouTube or subscribe to my personal YouTube channel. Same first and last name, all those things. And go check out, for the love of God, the playerprofiler.com/fantasy site. It's, I think, the best free fantasy site that you can find, with articles, with news, breaking news, featured articles written by Theo Greminger, written by John Lobb, written by Dan Williamson. These are some of the best Dynasty, breaking down rookies' minds in the industry. So go check that out, and it's 100% free. So you can go do that after this episode, and stay tuned for Trade Gods. And we need to get off the show.
Yeah.
we know how we always end things here. So I'm gonna draw it out a little bit, and then I'm gonna find the end screen, and then I'm gonna say
the biggest audience we've ever had. You might as well draw it out.
Nobody cares about Aaron Rodgers and Wiseman for Heisman, and we will see you next time. Bye, everybody.
Hey, I want to take a moment to thank you for tuning in. It's important to me that all of our media be free. This is only possible because of you, allowing a true independent sports media enterprise to thrive unlike any other in the business. So please subscribe to the All In Package to continue to make all of this possible, to ensure that all of our stats, information, data, content is available to you, especially you, the people that get the site and get the show.